May the 4th be with you. All right, welcome to our new Spring Refresh Professional Learning Series for School Counselors. May the 4th be with you. This is our 3rd week and the theme is college and career. Today's workshop is career counseling for elementary and middle school students. My name is Tanya Bulette, and I am the counseling coordinator for the San Diego County Office of Education. And we welcome all of you here today. We know that we have people from all over the state joining us. We even have others who aren't school counselors. We have administrators, we have grad students. So thank you so much for taking time out to learn more about this important topic. Just a reminder that this workshop will be recorded and we will post it on the SDCOE School Counselor website as soon as it's ready. And we will post a link at the end of this webinar. It will also be emailed out to you tomorrow following this workshop. So I want to really encourage you, since this is a webinar and we can't see your faces, so we want to know that you're out there. We really encourage you to use the chat. It also lets our speakers know that you're engaged. And so when our speakers share something that you liked, say it in the chat. Let us know, like, oh yeah, that's a great point. It just lets us know that you're getting the information and that you're excited about it or want to try something new. So also, before sending a message in the chat, you may have noticed that Zarette has been adding some things in there to remind you, but you want to make sure that you click on the blue down arrow button that's above the chat message and change it to panelists and attendees. So right now, everybody go to their chat and change that little blue box, click on the down blue arrow, to panelists and attendees. It always defaults to panelists, and we as the panel will only see your response. So we want to make sure that everybody sees your response. So we're going to practice. We're going to do what's called a waterfall. That means that you're going to put your response in the chat, but you're not going to hit enter until I say go. So if you could put your name, your title, and the county that you are from in the chat, but don't hit enter. Go ahead and do that right now. I'll give you about 20 seconds. Again, your name, position, and the county that you are from. Don't hit enter yet. We got some excited folks. And then I want to make sure you've all changed that blue down arrow button to panelists and attendees. Make sure that that's ready. And now everybody hit enter. Ready, go. Woo, look at them fly. That's a waterfall. And look at that. Panelists and attendees, yes. Awesome. Zarette, where are we seeing people from?
We are seeing people from Los Angeles, San Diego, San Joaquin. A lot of San Diegans, thank you for showing up. LA County. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, now in lieu of May the 4th be with you, it is Star Wars Day. I want to know who, and again, it's another waterfall, who or what is your favorite Star Wars character? What's your favorite Star Wars character? But don't let me know yet. Make sure that you have panelists and attendees. Got that answer typed in? And then ready, set, go. Oh, seeing Chewie, R2-D2, Yoda, Chewie, Luke. Awesome. A lot of the standards, the originals. Love it. Okay, so now that you all know to make sure to hit panelists and attendees, we can move forward. So thank you for that. So a little bit about this workshop. Participants will learn how to use students' strengths, interests, and values to begin a new conversation on how to approach their education and life. By using the students' RISEC letters, we will highlight some occupational options and help them to reframe their thinking into a growth mindset. The mind shift will be on students connecting their education with future careers by utilizing skills and strategies around self-awareness of their unique strengths, interests, and values. Counselors can inspire any and all stakeholders in a student's life to be career coaches. This training was created for elementary and middle school counselors. So here is your team of presenters. First is Melanie Brandt. She is a teacher facilitator. And I just want to say right now, happy Teachers Appreciation Day. And Melanie is one that we want to say happy Teachers Appreciation Day to you and to anybody else on this webinar. Melanie has taught in the Cajon Valley Union School District for 18 years. She served as a special education teacher for 13 years at Blossom Valley Elementary and taught 3 years in 4th grade general education at Rios Elementary, America's first computer science magnet school. Her current role is a World of Work facilitator where she supports the World of Work initiative, a K-12 modern curriculum. In her role, she supports teachers, counselors, staff, students, and the community with their engagement in classroom-based simulations that teach real job skills and careers. Welcome, Melanie. Janet Gilbert is a school counselor. She's in her 13th year and 4th year in Cajon Valley School District. She has been a school counselor at Avocado Elementary, my kids went there, Ferrete Elementary, and Design Learning Academy. Prior to working as an elementary school counselor, she was a middle school counselor for 6 years and a high school counselor for 3. In her current role, she is dedicated to fostering student growth and leadership through the exploration of students' strengths, interests, and values. And welcome, Janet. And then Madeline Bryan Reed has been a school counselor in the Cajon Valley Union School District for 15 years. She worked at Emerald, Greenfield, and Cajon Valley Middle Schools, and at Madison, Naranka, Chase, and Johnson Elementary Schools as a school counselor. I don't think there are any left that she hasn't worked at. This year, she is a school counselor at Las Cochas Creek, CSMA Magnet School, and Flying Hills School of the Arts. Madeline enjoys offering professional learning in restorative practices, Sanford and Harmony, trauma-informed care, and World of Work for counselors. So welcome to our presenters, and Madeline, I'm gonna pass it off to you to get started.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Tanya, so thorough. Today we would like to start off with our first question. We have SIVJ cards, which is strengths, interests, values, and job awareness. So picking one of these letters, I want you to write in the chat what either S, I, V, or J, pick one, and just put your answer on there, whatever question you want to answer. So what strengths do you appreciate in others? What is the most interesting place you've ever visited? When you did something wrong, what is something that you did to try to fix the situation? Or what are the 5 jobs that require people to be really brave? So just pick one and answer it in the chat. If you put the letter, that'd be helpful too. So letter and then your answer. I see some really great answers coming in. Lots of well-traveled people. Nice. So I'm sure everyone can read everyone's answers. And it's nice to give students just an opportunity, or everyone to an opportunity to answer a different question, because we're all different and we all are open to different things. So it's nice that we give you guys this option, and this is something you could use with students. Melanie, oh yeah, there. So career development is a human process. Any assessment, no matter how good, is only as good as the interpretation. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Melanie.
All right, thanks, Madeline, and thank you all for sharing. And we do have a PDF in the slideshow that was shared out that you can access more of those questions that we use in the classroom, as well as counselors and even administrators use those just to have a different conversation with students. Sometimes their students are tired of everyone asking them what's their favorite color, what do they like to do. It just gives a different type of question that students can answer. So yeah, career development is a human process, and that's where the lens that we like to look through, that it's not just up to counselors to process with students and unpack what their career and college goals might be and waiting till it's high school. We can start this process as young as kindergarten and in the elementary level, and the teacher and staff and anybody in the students' lives, parents, family members, can be part of that process and having conversations with the students, looking at what are they interested in, what are their natural strengths and talents, and how can that lead to a career path, and that there's dignity in all work, that college isn't always for everybody, and what are some other paths after 12th grade that our children can pursue to really have a life that they're happy and healthy. So how I got my motivation, this was my last year in the classroom. That's my 4th grade class. It's at Rios out in El Cajon. And I had this group of children, and all my career, I loved what I did. I had diverse experiences and many different students come through my classroom. And this is the year that we started integrating the RIASEC and World of Work in our classroom. And so students took a self-assessment and self-identified what are their RIASEC codes. And so they kind of identified what type of learner and what their interests were. And it helped them, and it helped me as the teacher understand them better, and also to understand what type of outputs should I create for them with their learning. If I had a large amount of children that liked art and are interested in art, so I always try to add art as part of their projects. It was a computer science magnet, so a lot of the children liked computers and computer science, so always trying to integrate what they were interested in. My young friend on the right there, on my right, he did Minecraft. We did a Minecraft education, and his project, you can see Minecraft created with his blocks. Wow. So he really liked the World of Work. And this young man was in my 4th grade class. His classmates now looked at his strengths and who he was as a person versus deficits. And on the last day of school, I went to file his report card in his cume, and I saw a stack of papers, and I looked through what they were, and he had been suspended 13 times from kindergarten through 3rd grade. But in his 4th grade year, when we had a different type of community and they looked at each other's strengths, he had 0. And so I knew that the difference in this child's life was that his classmates understood who he was, he understood who he was, and me as the teacher knew what his interests and strengths were, versus looking at that cume ahead of time and going, oh, and taking the label that I could have done and saying he's a troublemaker, he's this, that, and the other, he's been suspended, therefore I should look out for that. I didn't. I looked for what he could do. And he, to this day, keeps in touch. I get a text from his dad about every holiday, just checking in and wishing me a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, etc. And he's still continuing to do well, the best he can, because he had a different trajectory that 4th grade year. So this is my why and why I'm so passionate about this work. And as a teacher, it's important for us to understand the work as well, so that there's not so much put on the counselors in the area of career development. During the pandemic, I have a really dear friend who's a therapist, and she does therapy out in the El Cajon area. And she just sent me this simple text. We had been disconnected from school for about 6 weeks. The students hadn't really had their teachers. They weren't coming in the classroom where RIASEC was all around them, and they weren't talking about it. But in a simple, her therapy session, whatever she was there for, that she was able to connect her RIASEC and talk about it, and that was her positive component of her life. She was a 5th grader, like it says. And so it just shows, even outside of the context, when done and connected, she really did look forward to that and understood her own self. So this was just kind of another reason why this is such important work from a teacher's lens.
So why wow, why now? The landscape of work is changing. And I think prior to the pandemic, we were already seeing things like Uber Eats. We were already seeing, I don't use any of the Instacart and even like Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, there's all these different kinds of careers. And normally when you go to school, we hear, oh, what do you want to be? A doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. These are all careers that we knew and heard about when we grew up, but things have changed drastically. You know, you don't have to have a normal career. You can work 5 different side jobs. So what's really important for us to do as educators is know that every student has unique strengths, interests, and values and a place in the world. Students need exposure to the potential careers because there's these things that they don't think about, like my daughter wants to be an animator. And I don't think that was ever really mentioned when I was a child, like, oh, I can draw cartoons and get paid. That's weird. Students need to be able to see the possible selves of what they love to do and get a job doing it. What are students being exposed to now? We have to think about what are they seeing? We can't use what we are doing or how we were trained and what we learned, but what are they seeing now? And we can still open up their minds and eyes to brand new possibilities, which is amazing for them because it makes them it can help them connect to what it is that something they love and make it into something that is a career. So as you know, the ratio for counselors in all over the United States is really, really bad. I don't know how other counselors are feeling. I'm personally super overwhelmed just by the amount of mental health services that are needed from the backlash of the pandemic. And so these numbers are so huge and it's really difficult. So I thank all the counselors that are able to make it out to this today because it's a tough job that we have. And just trying to stay above water and having all these students and all their needs, it's very challenging. So like Melanie had mentioned before, who are the career coaches? Who are the people that we can look to as counselors for help? And we can be the leader at the sites and inspire teachers from as young as preschool all the way up to high school, other counselors, special education classrooms. We could ask the electives, the middle school electives. We can have the family engagement offices. Well, we have that in our district. We have a family engagement office, and they are our career coaches as well as parents and grandparents, librarians. So if you see this picture on the left, that is a picture of Cajon Valley Middle School's library, which was transformed into a world of work area where students could learn about other careers and explore their RIASEC and do a little deep dive on what it is that their strengths, interests, and values are and how to connect that to something into a job. And on the picture on the right is a picture of all the different people that I mentioned in our district that help cultivate this culture where we all know that this is part of our language. We all want we want all of our students to succeed. We want them all to find something that they connect to. So those are the pictures that you see, and anybody can help with career coaching.
And so here's some, you can kind of dig deeper if you have some time, but the program and just kind of looking at the strengths, interests, and values component and really that interest with the RIASEC, it really shows that there's the research that interest fit predicts employment outcomes, that satisfaction and performance when you're doing something that you're really interested in, you love doing. Parent involvement is a crucial piece. Or whoever's raising the child, if we can get them to kind of come in or they understand how to talk to their child, whether it's academic or even the career and college ready, that's important as well. And then exposing them to careers. And so meeting professionals in the field, like Madeline mentioned, our children are aware of careers that they see. They know teachers, they know doctors and nurses, things they see every day. But there's some careers out there that are outright outlooks, in demand, and maybe don't even exist today. But if we can point our children in that direction and they understand that I pick a career based on what I love and who I am, that's going to have a better life for me. So that's just some information that you can kind of see. There's more of a script and some more information down in the notes as well. So that's just part of the research, that base. And you don't have to have the World of Work program. What we're trying to share today is that RIAS second interest component, and looking at the child's strengths versus deficits can go any which way. This is just a piece that we have, and we are sharing some of the components that we've designed so you can better understand each child you might work with. And so just as the world of work has changed, there's just some vocabulary for career development. Many of these things we didn't even know existed even just a few years ago. So that self-awareness component, student understanding who they are, what are their strengths, interests, what's their personality, what are their RIAS set codes, if that's something that you bring into the conversation, and even post-secondary. When we were going to school, it was kind of like you go into a job, or you perhaps go to college and get into your career. But there's so many avenues that children can choose, and that there's value and that there's dignity in all those ways that they can go, from apprenticeship to college degrees, to community college route, going through a trade school, going to getting a job and on-the-job training. There's all value in those. It just depends on what you as a person want to do. And even ways of working. In our day, you might figure you go full-time, 40 hours a week, you do the same job for 30, 40 years, you retire. But there's so many contract types of ways you can work. You can be a gig worker, you can drive on the side, you can work part-time and decide what you want to do. You can have your career, but also be an entrepreneur and have a side business. There's all different ways that you can work and piecemeal it together based on your job satisfaction. And then there's just some other components there. Networking, your springboard job, that's kind of like your first job. My first job, I worked at a deli, pizza shop, and that was where I started. And that springboarded me with some skills and ways. And I also babysat. So there's my connection to being a social helper and going into education. So that springboard is what launches you into the career, into your full-time job. And so that self-awareness component, we look at children's strengths, interests, and values. So your strengths is like how you do something, your natural talents. Some of us are really good at talking and striking up conversations. There's some of you out there, you're really strong in natural. Math comes easy to some of us. Sports, athletics, music, those types of things, just a natural talent. And then the interest component, which is where the RIAS set connects, is that component of what are you interested in? What do you lose track of time doing? And what do our children tend to gravitate towards? And in school, is it, that they like art? Maybe they tinker and build things at home with their hands. One of our children like to play with Legos. Some of them like to go outside and get dirty, ride motorbikes, play sports. So those things that really lose track of time doing and what you're interested in. And then that workplace value is what's important to you and kind of why and how you like to work. A lot of us in education, we like to work cooperatively with others. We like to be in small groups and work as a community. But there's value, and some people like to work alone. They like to work at home, outdoors. That place of how you like to work is important. And for our children to understand that it's okay. I don't want to work in a group. I want to work by myself. And the earlier they can understand what they like to do and how they like to do it, the better for the future. So that's the workplace value comes into play, even for our children. So what we have our students do, whether it's in the classroom, a lot of times we try to encourage teachers to do this within the classroom. But if you have maybe a small group in your counseling or even a one-on-one and you're just trying to talk with the student and make a connection, we have them like self-assess and of their RIAS set codes. There are many different inventories out there that they can go on and take a test, but that's where the human connection and the conversation piece is so important that you can do it with them. And so we have them identify their top 2 or 3. Are they a realistic doer, social helper? And they identify what that means and how does that connect with what they do in school, how they're learning, and also sometimes within what they do outside of school, and how is that going to help them kind of find into their career path. So that's where we start. We start with the interest piece using the RIASEC. And we have slides, we have videos. If you Google University of Buffalo, RIASEC, they've created these beautiful 1-minute sketch videos that we show our students. It has words and it has animation drawings that they can kind of see what on there resonates with you. And they designed those well before this program. So you can always show them those, but we have some slides too that we can go through. So many of you may have taken a course through your coursework and maybe identify and understand the RIASEC. We're just going to kind of go through some slides. The self-awareness and that self-assessment is really crucial that we'll kind of do now. You'll kind of look at some characteristics and traits. There are some videos embedded, and you kind of see which 2 or 3 are your RIASEC codes. And again, it was developed and researched by John Holland. It's been the vocational interest topology. It's been researched. It's connected to, he was a military recruiter, and he realized if he connected the military that were coming out of the military and going into maybe careers after the military retirement, he would have a conversation and kind of guide them into what most fits them. And then he turned it into a research, and then that's here we have the RIASEC. And there's a great article, Nature and Power of Interest, connected there that you can read and kind of digs a little deeper into the framework. So again, it's nothing we created, it's out there, all created and researched by John Holland. And we know that in a community, kind of like a Where's Waldo looking picture there, we need every type of learner, every type of strength and interest to really make our communities thrive. And we know that in schools, we have to have our teachers that do certain roles that are strong, or our principals have their strengths, our counselors have their strengths and superpower, and then we have our office managers. I mean, everybody brings different talents that creates our school community. And then within that, also where we live, we know that it's a diverse community of interests and strengths that we need. In a classroom, that's where they start to look at each other's strengths and interests and how they can go off each other's talents and leverage each other instead of just trying to do it all. Being well-rounded is great, but it's also challenging. So if we can go, you know what, I'm not really artistic. I'm going to go ahead and ping my friend over here. I'm going to grab her to be in my group to do the artwork. I don't really like to be enterprising and share out and present. I'm going to grab somebody who's very into talking, is very talkative and likes to do that. So starting to look at through that lens of how do we leverage our strengths and talents to make a cohesive, wonderful community. And here's just some little snapshots of our students in action within our district. And you can see that our young learners as young as kindergarten kind of go through the process in very simple terms, connecting what they like to do and their interests to all these different codes. So we have our realistic doers, investigative thinkers, artistic creators, social helpers, enterprising persuaders, and conventional organizers. And we've broken it down with the simpler words to connect to each one for our youngest students to kind of connect what that means. Okay, so like I said, we start with our self-assessment. So I'm going to take you through a few slides and you can kind of self-assess through your own RIASEC. So the first one we start with is a realistic doers. So thinking about, you know, what would someone do who is realistic do on their weekend, and just kind of thinking about that now. I'm going to go through some slides, give you some information so that if you're not sure, you would be able to answer that after a few slides and gain you some little information on it. So realistic doers, they're motivated by those things there. They're motivated by building, repairing, being outdoors. They value making things work, craftsmanship, physical challenge, and tradition. I'm going to show you, we'll show you two of the videos. We'll do realistic and investigative, and you can kind of see what they look like. We won't show all of them today, but you can kind of get an idea of how they look and sound and feel. So this one is the realistic doers. So we have our students, we encourage them to watch it, and anything that sticks out to them, kind of, you can take a mental tally, because your adults we have some worksheets that they can kind of tally after each letter. And at the end of all the videos and all the conversation, which three stood out the most. So realistic doers.
People who identify with the realistic theme see themselves as practical, mechanical, and active. They enjoy hands-on activities, which may include working with animals, tools, or machines. In their spare time, they may enjoy activities including mechanics, gardening, hunting or fishing, carpentry, making jewelry, playing sports, driving vehicles, skydiving, or landscaping. You can often find people that align with the realistic theme in outdoor settings, in national parks, athletic facilities, farms or greenhouses, or in the military. Some of the greatest skills they possess include building and repairing, using tools and equipment, concrete problem solving, growing plants, and anything involving manual dexterity, public safety, and engineering and technology. They tend to value things you can see, touch, and use in their life, and often want their work to be hands-on, physical, and fairly active.
All right, so that is our realistic doers. A little quick video there. Some other things that represent and kind of traits and characteristics. Somebody who's realistic might describe themselves as practical, mechanical, and active. And they like to do things like build and repair, grow plants, being outdoors, active outside, or just physically active, working with animals, operate tools and machines. So thinking about you, or you might even start thinking about other people in your life, a spouse, a child, children that you work with, you start to see like, oh, okay, I can connect with this myself or somebody I know and love. So realistic doers. So had you now could possibly answer this a little easier with some more information that we just gathered. So if you want to take a quick 30 seconds, respond in the chat. This is a good way as an educator and a counselor to kind of get feedback on the students that they're within they understand, more or less what was being shared, and they're on the right track. So if you want to just take a quick minute, 30 seconds, and respond in the chat, what would someone who is realistic do on their weekend? What would they do on their weekend? Yeah, fix fence, hiking, mowing the lawn, DIY, house projects, absolutely. Work on their car. My husband is a carpenter electrician, so he definitely stays busy on the weekends doing all sorts of things. So yes, planting, engineering, water sports, excellent, motorcycle. So yes, well done, exactly. Lots of diversity there in our answers. So that's realistic doers. And now we're going to move on to investigative thinkers.
So the investigative thinkers, we would ask the question, where might someone who is investigative want to work? And then going over the motivations, they like to analyze, ask questions, research. They value knowledge, new ideas, innovative thinking, academic achievement. And then we show the video just so that kids, if they're visual or if they learn better this way.
People who identify with the investigative theme see themselves as curious, scientific, and intellectual. They enjoy gathering information and analyzing and solving complex problems, particularly in the realm of math and science. In their spare time, they may enjoy crosswords, playing strategy games, researching, learning, attending lectures, conducting experiments, discussing books, or even birdwatching. You can often find people that align with the investigative theme in laboratories, museums, universities, classrooms, medical facilities, libraries, bookstores, or at computers. Some of the greatest skills they possess correspond to complex problem solving, analyzing data, the natural and physical sciences, thinking abstractly, philosophy, statistics, and researching. They tend to value science and research in their life and seek environments that allow them to feel intellectually stimulated.
So as you can see, there's all these different adjectives that are used to describe an investigative thinker. And then I ask, are you curious, rational, analytical? Do you like to conduct experiments, figure out puzzles, understand why things happen, research to find answers, solve problems using math or science, or think deeply? I really think my husband's an investigative thinker. We're so opposite. And so some possible careers are science, research, medical science, and mathematics. And then we go back to the question asked the students, and you can answer in the chat, where might someone who is investigative want to work? Where might someone who's investigative wants to work? And then just go ahead and type it in the chat. A lab, STEM careers, computer programming, museum, at a university, medical field, biolab, anthropologist, yes, engineer, game developer, philosopher. Awesome. Police department. And it's just a great way to ask that question so our students, we know that our students are understanding.
Okay, and our third one, A, for artistic, or also known as the artistic creators. So who do you know that fits the artistic theme? And we'll go through some information. You probably already have that in mind. So artistic creators, they're motivated by creative insight, expressing individuality, self-expression through art, music, writing, cooking. They value creative expression, emotions, independence, and change. And then again, the video would have a sketching and all the information there. You can take time and watch that later, just so you have that access to that easily. But for time, we'll just kind of go on to the next piece there, where they do things that involve self-expression, and somebody would describe themselves as being imaginative, expressive, creative, doing things like sketching, drawing, musical instruments, playing them or listening to them, even writing stories, poetry, music, singing, acting, dance, designing fashion or interiors, and even attending concerts or plays. So thinking about all those possible careers. I mean, you're thinking, bakers. I even think I have a sister who's a hairstylist. And so that's creative expression. You have to be very artistic to be so creative for updos and hair and the color and all that stuff. So those jobs too are also artistic creators. So who in your life do you know that fits the artistic theme? Artistic theme. My 8-year-old's starting to show a lot of artistic creating interests and connections. She likes to draw and likes to go to shows. She does the children's theater. So somebody said their best friend's an illustrator, filmmaker, actor, absolutely. Someone, me, a counselor, absolutely thinking outside the box, being creative. That's Madeline's husband. Her sister, she comes from a family, looks like, of artists. Or wives, father-in-law, a baker, definitely. Somebody who's into the theater. And so when our children have those artistic talents, we can lead them into those careers that they can have that creative outlet. It's not just for hobbies, but we can make careers out of artistic talents as well. So thank you all for sharing. So those were our artistic creators.
Now, social helpers, I feel like a lot of us educators would have an S in our RIASEC code. How might someone with social interest theme spend their time during COVID lockdown? So think about a year ago, what were those social helpers doing? And I think you can already imagine in your mind what you might have done, or someone that that social helper have done. So we like to help others. I'm saying we because I'm assuming we're all an S. Empowering others, instructing and nurturing. We like to cooperate, communicate, and have our relationships and talk about feelings. And then we ask them, are you helpful, understanding? Are you patient? And then what is some things that you like to do? Help people with their problems, leading discussions, doing volunteer work, teach or train, which we're doing, take care of others, advocate for social justice. So if students didn't know, we go back to, so how might someone with social interest theme spend their time during COVID lockdown? And you can respond in the chat, something you might have done or something about what people did and that were social helpers. What did they do during the lockdown at the very beginning? Giving meals, reached out to families, charitable fundraisers, participate in protests, making masks, distant outdoor activities, delivered food, grocery shop for others, shared resources on a personal and professional platform. That's awesome. So like I said, I feel like we have a lot of social people here in our panel or in our discussion today.
Okay, and our E is our enterprising persuaders. So thinking about where might someone who is enterprising want to work? And enterprising persuaders are motivated by persuading, selling, and leading. They value influencing others, status, power, authority, and risk taking. And involving, many times it involves selling, managing, social influencing, kind of in a business context. So somebody might describe themselves as ambitious, talkative, assertive, and they like to do things like debate ideas, lead groups, persuade others, make decisions, initiate projects or start businesses, and sell things. So when we have students who are described as talkative, I believe now, knowing what I know about the RIASEC and unique interests, that that's actually a talent and a strength. We just have to help the child leverage that and give them time and places to be talkative and not always shut it down. And that's hard for teachers and educators, but I believe now, looking through a new lens, that talkative, assertive, student with little extra energy has a place in the world, and we just have to leverage that talent and channel it into a positive context, and that it's okay. We don't want to stop it because we need the persuaders. I'm not persuader. We need those people in our lives. So thinking about that, where might someone who is enterprising want to work? Where would you find them? What would their careers be? Even within our business, we have our superintendents, sales office, social media, CEOs, lawyers, absolutely sales. We all probably, many of us dread going to buy a car or buying anything where a salesperson's going to come up to us sometimes. Politics, absolutely. So excellent on the roll, entrepreneurs. Okay, well done. Okay.
The last letter is conventional organizers. Who in your life do you know that fits the conventional theme? So then we look over. The motivations of someone with conventional is organizing, processing data, managing information. The value is accuracy, stability, dependability, and security. And then we go ahead and ask the kids, are you orderly, methodical, efficient? Do you like to find patterns in data, organize collections, keep accurate records, follow a set plan, create structures and systems, be responsible for details? And then we go back to the question, who in your life do you know who fits the conventional theme? So if there's someone that you can think of, go ahead and write it down. A lot of me's. Wedding planners, wife, myself, my mom, youngest son, myself. Definitely.
All right, so then thinking about, which best describe you, and we like to have our students kind of claim 2 or 3. So are you more of a realistic doer, investigative thinker, artistic creator, social helper, enterprising persuader, or conventional organizer? So one probably is pretty obvious, and then you kind of have the next 2. I claim my RIASEC is social, realistic, conventional, so I'm SRC. And so once you have that common language and knowledge, students start to kind of connect, even adults in their lives. Like if our superintendent would come into my classroom, the students would ask him, what's your RIASEC codes? Or he would ask students, and on campuses, counselors could come into classrooms or on the playground and ask the students. So that's kind of a new little language that everybody has and an understanding and looking at each other differently in a positive light. So which 2 or 3 do you claim? And if you want to drop in the chat your 3, just by putting the first letter, that's fine. We may get a lot of social in the group, but even just when we start looking at the chat, you can already see how we would be a unique community. I mean, many of us are social, but look, we're going to leverage some of our artistic friends to do part of our projects and realistic. We need our investigators. Many of us have some conventional talents. Some of us lead with artistic, which is well needed. Not many. Okay, we're one panelist who is SRE. We're going to call on him to lead us and to present our project. So really, very rarely are they all the same, or do you find people that are the same? And it's great that you have differences, and it's a good way to leverage our group. So yes, very good. Lots of social helpers in the room, so that's excellent. Okay. And then looking at, like I was mentioning before, there are RIASEC scientific inventory. So maybe you don't have enough time with students to go through what we just did, but you want to see what their interest codes are. There are 3 different profilers here that have different number of questions too, depending on your time, and that you can give a student, and then best to unpack it and to go through it with them so they understand a little more what they mean. If you just gave a student the results and they're like, okay, I'm RCI, now what am I going to do with that? So to really have that human connection and conversation is really good to do with them. So here's 3 that you can look at and use. And then obviously for students, they want to know, why am I doing this? Why are you talking to me about that? Maybe our middle schoolers kind of push back a little bit on us, which is great. So here are some ways you can explain. I know it's out there. They're backed by science, but also there's some ways that you can make connections in their lives. So Ohio State and Oklahoma, and even I believe Arizona, have aligned their majors by the RIASEC code. The first, I know Ohio State, they're the first 2. So if you're an SR, you can go in their book, their program book, and see which majors they kind of recommend you take. I even double checked mine to see, and sure enough, it had, you know, my two lead ones, SR. I should have been a special ed teacher. So luckily I did major in the correct major back in college. So it was validating to see that. We also have a handout there, Connected Occupations by RIASEC codes. The ONET is the government database of jobs that are available, but also with information. So a student can say, I'm interested in being a veterinarian or vet tech. Type it into the search, gives you lots of information about that career, what skills, knowledge you need. But down below, there's an interest piece, and it's going to have 3 RIASEC codes that align to that career. So they can kind of see that, okay, I'm lining up in the right direction. It seems like my interests align to this career. I need to, pay attention to math and science. It recommends, there things that you should be strong in. And also has actual openings around the country of different jobs that are government opening for government jobs. So even if you yourself are looking or know somebody that needs a job, you can go through the ONET. And then this here is just our local high school. We feed into the Grossmont Union High School District. So we created a document to help our middle school counselors and teachers and parents have that conversation. If a child's looking at a CTE pathway, what's their RIASEC, and which schools offer which pathways that align to RIASEC codes. So that was something we just kind of made out of our little office for our district, but you could see if you have the similar CTE pathway, how does the RIASEC connect with that? So there is some relevance for the students here and some more extra information for you to be able to connect with and use in your any sort of conversations you're having with students and parents. And then when you have time, this is something you can kind of dig deep and get lost in. There's some videos, classroom examples, so you really can see how it looks in a classroom. Remember, we're also supporting that the teachers have a role in this career development, so it's not falling on our counselors. And you can see young 4th graders and 5th graders, even a kindergarten video where they're learning about the RIASEC, and then how teachers are infusing it and connecting it organically with their content. So it's not just another thing you do, there's relevance. So there's lots of those different photos and videos there for you to kind of glance at when you have time. Okay.
So it's super important, especially I think now this time of the year, that we try to really look for those kids' strengths. As counselors, sometimes kids get sent to us or problems sent to us, and how do we approach this? It's really important that we try to find the strength of that child. If they're being too talkative, maybe they're social. If they're trying to get out of some disciplinary thing, maybe they're persuasive. Are they leading? Are they an includer? So what's really important is trying to find the strengths of the students that seem to kind of stick out a little bit. And especially, like I said, this time of the year. And so there's a video that kind of goes over what it looks like. And the reason we kind of want to start using that language and have students better know their strengths is so that they can bring that into a job interview and be able to say what it is that they're good at. I think having teachers and other people that can help us address this at the elementary level is an amazing thing to start having students be exposed to this, because once they hit middle school, if they don't know the language, sometimes when I run through the RIASEC with the kids, they go, "I'm everything," and it's like, I know you're everything, but what are you really good at, or what is something you're really drawn to? And I think it kind of gets muddled in middle school, just because they have there gets to that point where they kind of are starting to explore and figure out themselves. But if we do this at the elementary level, then students already have the language, they have the foundation, they kind of already know what they like, what their strengths, interests, and values are. And then hopefully it would roll over into middle school. So that's why I really enjoy having conversations early.
So we had the strengths component, interest, and then there's the values. And this is where they kind of learn why they like something's important to them. And this is a good example we like to share. So your student has self-assessed, they're really conventional, they like organizing, they know that, but where the workplace value component comes in is to something here. You have the computer, so say you have a student who's conventional, they really want to be, the computer science or computer webmaster, something to do with computers is an option, but also farming is conventional. And those careers are very different. And so it really comes down to, where do you want to work? Do you like working indoors, perhaps by yourself or remotely? Or do you value working outdoors? And the farmer's going to have seasonal and long hours and maybe some downtime. And so you have to value what is it you value, and that's where you can kind of make the decision, because you could be both conventional organizing, really stuck to schedules and time, but where do you want to work? And so that, and getting dirty, and then what type of clothing do you want to wear? Do you want to be able to wear flip-flops and shorts and stay home and work remote, go into an office with a suit, wear jeans and get dirty? So it really comes down to those workplace values. It's another component to go over with our students so they understand that piece as well.
So we've created a worksheet to help guide this work, and it can be done in a classroom guidance lesson, in a small group, or individually. But back when I first got hired as a counselor 15 years ago, I was hired under AB 1802, which meant I had to meet with students and do an academic review. And what we wanted to do was change the conversations. We didn't want to talk about the fact that they're failing, that they have low grades, low test scores, bad attendance, behavior issues. These are all things they already know. We wanted to be able to highlight their strengths, their interests, their values. We wanted them to get connected to school in a different manner. So if you look at, you can click on to the strength, interests, and values for counselors worksheet, and it's about 4 pages. And once you go over it with students, they can claim the 3 letters and what's their first, what's their second, what's their third, why did they pick it, is on the bottom part. And then the last 3 pages just talks about what strengths, interests, and values are. So just in case they didn't see the videos, or just in case it's you're just handing the paperwork or it's done remotely, they can go ahead and look at that and kind of look at themselves and how do you get connected back to school. So this is such a great resource that Melanie had created, and she posted it here for you all.
All right, thank you. And it was a team effort, Madeline. And also going back, there was a question in the chat about if this can be done, how we self-assess. There's the scientific inventory, and then going through like this sheet here. It can be done in a whole group if you have time to go into a classroom. If you have your smaller groups with maybe a handful of students that need to kind of go over the skills, or even if you have to take a child one-on-one, and sometimes changing the conversation, instead of it being like, they probably know they have an attendance issue. They probably know you might be calling them in because the grades were just posted and they get called in often. But maybe when they come into your office, you change the whole direction of the conversation and you start to unpack what their RIASEC codes are. What are they interested in? And learning about them differently. And then probably even learning about you as well. So it can be done depending on what you have time for, what you need, and the needs of the school and the children on your campus. So
and it's nice because it could be distance or in person.
Exactly. So there's different ways to go about them going through this. If you only have a limited time and they're older, they're probably 5th grade and up, you can do some of those scientific inventories. Log on to, and I think somebody even mentioned something about the Career One Stop, but there's some other resources there. A lot of that is connected to the ONET and the government database things. There's lots of resources out there. They can just do a quick 30 question or less inventory that gives you the same information. It just depends on your time. And I know time is valuable in our world. Okay, so the other piece was meeting professionals. We go through what's called the NEPRIS, and they outsource professionals that the children can zoom in from all over. But because of the Zoom technology being so comfortable for parents and community members these days due to the pandemic, we can actually invite parents in a little easier, and it's kind of a lot better when they're actually at their workplace. And so if students are really interested in some sort of career, if you have a family member or community members, or if you're able to get on the NEPRIS to outsource, and they can zoom in and they can kind of meet that professional, even if you're setting up some sort of internship, mentorship, volunteering, however a student can really get involved with a professional is always a good way to keep that motivation. Because sometimes it might be that they go out and say, I really want to be, work at the police in the safety and be a police officer. They go shadow or they go meet one, and then they decide, you know what, that's really not for me. That's also good for them to realize while they're still young, to those careers might not be what they're kind of set out to be, and they can kind of reevaluate their path. So meeting a professional can be done various ways, but if we can get them in, it's a good way to reflect. It is for me or it is not. It's just as important that they decide it's not for them. And we empower our coaches, which we said our career coaches can be anybody in the child's life, whether it's a coach, parents, the liaisons on our sites if you have volunteers, custodians. We've even gone out and done these trainings with our custodians, our transportation department, so everybody's understanding what all this means. But here's just some simple questions. We empower our parents, especially, to ask their child, what are your RIASEC letters? What do you lose track time of doing? And then when you're out and about somewhere, hey, what do you think? What kind of careers do you think are here? What kind of jobs are in the grocery store or at the library or just out in the community? Starting to look at, okay, there's Kaiser Hospital. There's different careers there: social helpers, nurses, doctors, receptionists, and any types of careers in the school, at Home Depot, in the community, just kind of pointing at how that aligns to what they're interested in. And then you can also meet an adult and say, wonder what RIASEC themes they have. I wonder what their interests are, and why do you think that? So just some prompts for our parents and community members as we encourage them to be career coaches as well.
Okay, hi everyone. I first just have to say I am so excited to be here today because college and career is one of my whys as a school counselor. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to be a school counselor. And as a first generation college student, I really did struggle a little bit through the process. So knowing that we have something like this that we can focus on as young as TK and K just makes my counselor heart very happy. So I did see in the chat that there were a couple questions about activities. So I'm going to share a few with you today that I think you could use really for elementary or middle school. And then also that you could use as whole class or maybe even smaller group in your group lessons that you do. So the first one is called a thumbs up activity. So this one just kind of helps us connect what we do every day to our strengths and interests. So this is an activity that you can do with your staff, even just to get them kind of interested in the RISET codes and learning about them. Or you can even use this one or level it down for some of the younger kiddos if you need to. So you guys can use your thumb emoji. I don't know if they call it an emoji on a Zoom, but the little thumb, or you can use your own thumb, even though I know it's kind of hard for us to all see. So give me actually, you know what? Maybe you can just say thumbs up or something in the chat. So that way we can all see it, if that makes sense. So the first one is thumbs up if you talk to people on elevators, in grocery stores, on airplanes, or wherever you go. So if this is you, just say, yep, there you go. Oh, see, some people know how to do the thumbs up. Okay, so a lot of thumbs up. Counselors, I feel like definitely chatty. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, if you guys want to write in the chat, might be the easiest way to do it. Which RISET code do you think this connects to? So if you had to guess, which one of the RISET codes do you think that that's what I think it could maybe go either way. I see a lot of social, but I also think that it's very I see it enterprising. So I think it's very enterprising as well. So maybe a little bit of both, right? Okay, and then the next one is thumbs up if you have a color-coded or otherwise organized closet. And I have to say, I can't look at this picture without thinking of the home edit. I don't know if there's any home edit fans out there that have their closets organized by rainbow, but that would be my goal. I wish I could do that, but maybe not this year. It's been a little busy. Okay, lots of thumbs up. So which code do you guys think this connects to? If you had to guess. Yep, I see a lot of C's. I see some O's, which makes sense because it's all about organizing, right? But so that would probably fall under the conventional code. Okay, so the next one is thumbs up if you are always figuring out the plot of the movie before anyone else does. And hopefully if you're figuring out the plot of the movie, you're not the person that's yelling it out for everyone. And spoiler alert. Okay, a lot of thumbs up. So which code do you guys think this might connect to? Investigative, good. Okay, you guys are on your game. So this is also, I like this activity because it's a good way to check for understanding. So if you review the codes with kids, you can always come back to this as like a refresh or kind of checking in with them. So the last one is, oh no, there's two more, sorry. Thumbs up if you just want everyone to get along. I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of thumbs up for this one. And which code do you think it connects to? Social. Yes. Okay, I see a lot of social, and I bet almost all, when we looked at the codes, when you typed them in the chat, I saw almost everyone had an S in their code. And the very last one, I think this one's a little bit tricky, but thumbs up if you always pick someone to race on the freeway. And you don't have to admit it if you don't want to in the chat. You can just think about it in your head. I see a lot of thumbs down because it's not very safe. Which code do you think this one connects to? This is somebody who might be competitive. So which code do you think? Yep. I see a lot of E's for enterprising. Okay, you guys are good. You're on your game today. So just the so that's one fun, more interactive activity. But I know that as school counselors, we have so many things on our plates. So these are two examples of something I think, pretty quick and easy to implement school wide. Um, and really, it can be sprinkled into all the things that we do as school counselors if we're thinking from that strengths based lens. So I use, or a lot of our teachers at our schools do use the WOW program, and the kids know their RISE set codes. So I can generally go into the classrooms and do lessons and kind of incorporate the student strengths, interests, and sometimes values because they know them so well. But this is something that I think you can do even if your whole school isn't quite on board with it yet. It's something you can just implement on your own in your counseling program. So this is a leadership teams application. So what we did was, this was born from an idea of kiddos who they just want to help. Like, I think they thrive when they're a part of a community, they feel like they belong. And so they would come to me and say, Mrs. Gilbert, let's start a club. Let's do this. Let's do that. And so it kind of took some time, and we all started thinking about it, and we're like, all right, well, let's do this. Let's make some leadership teams. So, what do we need to make these clubs? Because we can't do it just one person, right? Like, one person, you can make a difference, but when we all work together and we synergize, things are usually better, right? We can get more done. So that's where this application was kind of born out of. And the images on the top, those are just all our different clubs, and the kids help come up with logos. So as you can guess, a lot of our kids who are artistic helped out with those, helped create them. And I have to just mention, the teams are, most of them are like pretty straightforward, like garden club. But the teams crack me up. The kids came up with the name. So I think my absolute favorite is the pump team. And this is a team of leaders who make sure that all of the balls are pumped up at recess, and they take their job so serious. So they're out there, they are the pump team, they're out there grabbing pumps. Here, let me pump that ball up for you. And they created a system. So this was the one for my conventional friends. They were super organized. They had a list, and they would mark the ball 3 times. If it was on its 3rd pump, they knew that it was, probably not going to last much longer. So anyways, we kind of came up with all the different teams, and we add to it. So when kids come up with new ideas, we make a new team. And so this is an application that the kids can fill out. So it's open to the whole school. So it's a great tier 1 activity. And then we put job descriptions on the bottom. So I think if you scroll down, it'll have each team, and it lists out the job description. So they can start associating their code or their interests with what some of those teams do. And the beauty of it is that all teams need all of the interests and need all of the student strengths. So they really could choose any of them, but it's kind of just a way to get them thinking about, like, what am I good at? And, super sneaky way for them to do positive affirmations too, right? Because they're actually sitting there going, what am I good at? And then they have to say it and mark it on an application. So I thought that was my super fun, sneaky way to kind of sprinkle that in. And so some of the kids knew their RISE set codes, but I started this kind of before all of our teachers were really consistently doing it in class. So the way that we kind of went about it is some of the things that Melanie and Madeline shared in the beginning. Our leaders, we had a group of leaders, and we kind of trained them up in some of the RISE set codes, and they really started to think about it. And they stood out, actually I have it right behind me, but they stood out at recess and they held up their codes, and each of them took some time to explain each of the codes, so that when kids sat there and filled out their application, they knew kind of what each of them meant. And of course they change over time, and they're flexible, and as they start learning more, they really start honing in on some of those skills. So this is also my super secret way of helping out some of those kids that I call like my VIP kids, the ones that I see all the time, like whether they're in a group or not, they're going to show up, at my door for that day. So I thought, well, let's be proactive about it. Let's find a way to just check in on them. And so the awesome bonus is that they're belonging to a community. They're doing great things for the school. It's improving their self-esteem. and it really helps with our attendance. So one of our clubs is Guardians of the Gateway, and then we have Traffic Squad. So they wear their little vests, they stand out in the front. So my kids who have a harder time getting to school early, a lot of times I'll give them a job and they have to be there in the morning. They have to be there by like 7:55. So those kids are like standing there with their vests, like, all right, mom, let's go. Like, we got to get out the door, and they're ready to go. So we really did see an increase in our attendance rates after implementing this for probably towards the second year and being really consistent with it. So this is kind of one that you could use, and I think it's linked. I'll make sure that I open it up after this training so that everyone can access the link, but it should be one where it just forces you to make a copy, but I'll make sure that in the slide deck, the link's updated so that it looks okay. So that's kind of the one, like tier 1 full school activity. And then the next one, I use it as a lesson. I've also used it in a small group as well. So this one is just really super simple. I'm sure you guys do these all the time with your kiddos, but vision boards. So I made a Google slide, and the older kids are able to just make a copy, and they can just drag and drop. Like if they have images on their computer, they drag and drop them, or they can use some like preset images or search right then and there. But the basic idea is that they're setting goals. They're beginning with the end in mind, right? They're thinking, okay, whether it's, and they, most of the time I just let them choose, like, if you want to make a goal for this school year, do you want to make a goal for this month? Do you want to make a goal long term? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up, kind of thing? So they choose. And then I think it's maybe slide 5 has like the instructions on it. Oh yeah, so they would just put like their 6 to 8 images, and then I just took the RIASET codes and copied them and put them on the board, just pre-filled them and said, okay, just take off the ones that you think don't apply. And so it was kind of a nice way to circle back if the kiddos didn't remember, because then we could kind of circle back and be like, all right, what does conventional mean? What does social mean? And then they just dragged them right into this vision board, super easy. And then the younger kiddos, I just had them color and make it on a big white piece of paper. And so I think they had fun doing that too. And they put their little codes and then drew their pictures. And then I think, so hopefully this will be in there so you can make a copy of this one too if you want. And then I did put a student example, which I think is on might be slide 60. So that was mine. And I use this one as my demo. So I'm like showing them as we were doing it on Zoom because we started distance learning. But now that we're back in the classroom, I just, project it up on the screen and kind of show them. And then, so this is one that a kiddo came up with at the beginning of the year. And I don't know, I just love this one. It's so good. And it just like cracks me up because the goal was, I want to travel someday. And so it was a way to have that conversation. Cool. So like, what do you need to travel? Oh, well, I'm going to need money, Mrs. Gilbert, because it costs money to travel, right? So like, she went all the way back to, okay, well then I need to have a good career. Like, here's all the places I want to go. What am I going to do one day? So it was pretty cool. So her thing was, I want to travel someday. I'll become a veterinarian so I can make money to travel, and I'll use my eye to learn science and work really hard. So I didn't even notice this, but I was showing it to Melanie the other day, and she was like, actually, all her pictures line up with her RIASET codes too, because she has the realistic in there and investigative. So, and artistic, because this is kind of an artistic activity. So it's kind of a cool way to just connect it all. And I think super simple if you only have a little bit of time, to work with the kids for the day. Oh, sorry. I keep saying, that it doesn't allow, and I thought, it could just be that it's for Cajon Valley. So I'll go through and change the link and make sure that you guys can access it and make a copy. And that's what I had kids do for this one. I just changed the link to make a copy. And so they all have their own copy, and then they love to send me their vision board. So it's kind of fun because I get to see them all.
All right. So there's just some ways as the counselor can, if they have students that understand it, and make it school-wide if you have that opportunity. And just kind of, we have some closing, and there's a lot more resources on the slideshow here that you can look at. There's another game to play called Career Card Heads Up, where you can just kind of see that further down. This young man, I'll tell you the quick story. He was in my 4th grade class. His name is Sammy. And he identified his RIASEC was EAS, so Enterprising Artistic Social. And when our superintendent, Dr. Miyashiro, came through on a visit, coming through classrooms, he asked Sammy, they struck up a conversation, what's your RIASEC code? And Dr. Miyashiro shared that his was Enterprising Artistic Social. Sammy said, so is mine. And so they got to talking, and Sammy now, because he connected with an adult that had similar interests, he talked to him about what our superintendent does. He all of a sudden wanted to become his motivation, and he wants to become a superintendent. And he was set on being a superintendent. Our Dr. Miyashiro took him on a job shadow one day, and he went around and looked at classrooms. They connected, and all because he met somebody and connected with RIASEC. He's striving to a career he didn't know existed. I'm thinking, I always think I wanted to be a teacher since I was in school, and I don't quite know at what age I realized that superintendent was a piece of that. It probably wasn't until I was nearing into the field. And he's now in 7th grade, and he came down and did a district office tour recently with our superintendent just to check in and meet his future employees, as we like to tell him. And he still continues to want to be a superintendent someday. And so through conversation, we kind of talked about what that path looks like as far as, going through class, obviously getting through high school, you will go to college, get your 4-year degree. There's teacher ed, courses to take, and then going into administration, and someday working your way to superintendent. So there's some steps involved that we shared with this young 4th grader, and he still continues to have those dreams and aspirations to someday. I did the math, and he would be able to be my boss within time before I retire. So I always introduce him as my future boss, Sammy. So just, again, that picture there also goes, in our day you have education and you have the world of work. And it was kind of 2 separate things. You went to school, your parents went to work. And now we kind of overlap that. How can we expose kids to skills and interests and things that they do need in their future? Not really putting the stress and pressure that they have to pick a career and they have to start thinking that as young as kindergarten, but just showing them things that they can start working on, even just essential skills as far as working with others and being able to get those jobs and being a normal, as normal as possible, and a decent human being, and with those essential skills. So that is Superintendent Sammy with our little fun story. There's our contact information. This is a really great video as well that you can watch about a student struggling and then meeting the right mentor that believed in him. And then for locally, our workforce partnership for San Diego, and I know if you're out of our county, there's workforce partnerships, throughout the different places. They've aligned, we've partnered with them, and they have aligned all their workforce, kind of their job posters. So within their field, so you have like our education, human development, the priority sectors. They've aligned their posters to match the RIASEC code. So students even can see that if they go out and see the industries and learn about those. More middle school, high school, start to kind of learn about the priority sector. It's like, okay, I'm interested in the healthcare. What kind of careers are there within healthcare? And education, human development, it's not all about teaching and counseling, but what other careers are there? You can work for an education in a school district, and you can be the carpenter at the school district. We have custodial positions. We have our enterprising, the leaders and such, and our board members. So that we've aligned those there, and I believe that My Next Move, their website, has some great RIASEC and information, but also these posters, so you can kind of introduce your students to priority sectors as well and how it connects to the RIASEC. So again, with some more relevance. And then we just attached, if you want to dig deeper into some research and papers, there's plenty of those there to kind of look at whatever your interest is. If you're looking at the early years, how does the research say for our students, and then kind of career guidance, anything that you might be interested in. And then, yeah, there's another game that you can play with students to kind of career heads up. It's kind of a fun little game. We use some of the careers to describe with, if you're interested in that. So I know that we have the chat there. We tried to answer questions as we went along, but definitely reach out to either one of us, all 3 of us, whatever you want or need. Things need to be unlocked, shared, more information, we definitely have more resources than we are able to share here today. But the three of us love this. This is what we do. We love it. We see the difference in our students and our children and our parents. Even as a mother, looking at my daughter and through the lens of interests and not one size fit all has changed probably my parenting in a positive light as well. So reach out anytime. We dearly thank you for your time today in the middle of the day on this Tuesday. So thank you to my colleagues, Madeline and Janet. Thank you so much for this. And then our host as well. Thank you, Tanya, for allowing us to share our love and passion of the world of work.
Thank you so, so much. That was an amazing presentation and I got a lot out of it. And I have to say, if it wasn't for my son's middle school class on film production in 7th and 8th grade, he would not have found his passion. And unfortunately, the high school that he went to did not have a program for film. So he did a lot of after school programs or summer programs, but that outlet got him through school. And now he just finished yesterday his first year at Woodbury University for film. And again, he found that passion in 7th grade. And it was the first time he came home to me saying, Mom, there's this elective that I want. And it was film production. So, and he did that in 7th and 8th grade, and that was it. And now that's the career he is headed into. And so I have to just say that this work in elementary and middle school is so critical. And as a former practicing high school counselor, I have to say that if they can come with that knowledge into high school, then we can set them up for the right CTE pathway, find the right school with the program. And it's just so critical to getting them through those 4 years. So thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing to be innovators in this field. And for showing that we can do college and career counseling in elementary and middle school and that you have a deep passion for it. Your ideas are incredible. Your resources are fantastic. So thank you so, so much. And again, if you could please complete the survey. I know Zarette's putting the link in the chat. We have a spot in the survey where you can put messages to our speakers today and share the love. We really want to make sure that they get that because they are doing such incredible work. And thank you all for joining us here today. The Spring Refresh series continues for the next 4 weeks. And again, we have 5 more workshops this week around college and career. So we hope that you join us. So again, thank you again. And if you have any other questions in the chat, feel free to post them or you can email our speakers directly. And we're gonna take you out with some more Star Wars.